Hello, welcome back to another of the Richardson lectures on the challenge of resource management. This time we'll be talking about water supply and demand in the UK. We need to be able to describe and explain the distribution of water stress in the UK, to evaluate the role of water transfer schemes in the UK, and at the end we'll just touch upon the problems facing water quality in the UK. So first of all, water is a resource. Well, water of course is a very important resource. It's really important for human life. But also it's important for our industries and also for farming. We water the land to irrigate crops, to provide for our livestock, which in turn provides another essential resource for us, food. However, not all areas of the UK do have a reliable supply of water all the time. Those areas are called areas of water deficit, where there's not enough water around to meet the demand of the population. And areas of water surplus, they're areas where there's more water than needed to meet the demand of the population. So it's a combination of two factors: rainfall, how much water is available, but also the population density, how many people are living there and therefore need the water. It's a balance between the two. The demand for water in the UK is also increasing. The main reason for that is that we've got an increase in population. Of course, the more people there are, the more water is needed. But an increase in population also means we're going to need more homes to be built, and homes have lots of water reliant appliances, so the number of more houses are built, the more water appliances are needed. And we're also seeing an increasing number of people living by themselves in single occupancy homes, so there's a lot of homes and appliances for a small number of people. By also increasing the population, it means we need to have more food, and so there's a need perhaps to expand our agriculture, which again will lead to use of more water. And also we see in those homes an increased number of water-reliant appliances, things like dishwashers now, are very common in many homes, and also even some luxury items. Some people may even own a hot tub, again, more water-reliant appliances. So, we mentioned about this idea of deficit and surplus when it comes to water. Another phrase we use when we talk about this is water stress. So an area with high water stress means it's got a water deficit, there's low water supply. An area of low water stress means they've got a good water supply, they've got a water surplus. And we can see the pattern on this map. So this is a map, this is just showing England, not of course the whole UK. And it's divided up into these water zones that are controlled by different water boards. And if we're presented with data like this, of course we should be thinking about describing the overall trends in the data. Can we do any sort of calculations and approximate percentages and fractions of areas, reference to specific areas, in this case the water area is highlighted, and also are there any exceptions to those general trends. So what really stands out is down here in the southeast of England we've got a high area, an area of serious water stress in the southeast of England. So that's one general trend. And the other general trend is that the further west and north you go, generally the lower the level of water stress. And we can probably say around about 25%, quarter of England is covered by this serious water stress area. It includes areas such as Thames water around the London area. And in terms of exceptions, a mild exception, we could comment on this area, Area 13 here, which is southwest water. We could call that a slight exception because it is a very far westerly point, but actually it's in moderate water stress, so we might have expected that to be low water stress. So there's some kind of patterns we can comment on there. So why is that the case? Well, if we take a look at these two maps, we can find the answers. This one on the left is showing rainfall across the UK, the one on the right showing population density. The rainfall map clearly shows in blue the areas of high rainfall, and they are in the north and west of the United Kingdom. So high rainfall in southwest and Cornwall, much of Wales, you can see the Pennines, or the west side of the Pennines anyway, and then much of Scotland. And the reason why that is the case is because, first of all, most weather fronts, the weather systems that bring rainfall, most of those come from the west and the southwest, so these areas are going to get the rainfall first, and most of that water falls out of the clouds in these areas before it moves on further east. But also, really importantly, these are also areas of high land, and that creates something called orographic rainfall, where warm, moist air meets the UK and it's forced to rise up over mountains. As that air is forced to rise, it cools, condenses to form clouds, and we see rainfall. Hence why some of our heaviest rainfall areas are located there. And our driest areas are the farthest east, and also in particular the southeast of England. We look at our population density map though, and we can see that actually our highest population density is down in the south and east. We can also see we've got some major urban areas in the north of England, the cities are in Yorkshire and Lancashire, but the south east of England does stand out as being an area of particular high population density. So that combination of very dry conditions and high population density makes it an area of water deficit, whereas you take a look at the Scotland, for example, the Scottish Highlands, high amounts of rainfall, very low population density, that's an area of water surplus. So one of the solutions to trying to balance out this problem and reduce the water stress in the southeast is to use water transfer schemes. That involves moving water from areas where we've got a surplus, where it's stored in reservoirs, down to the areas where it's needed, those deficit areas. And a good example of that is Kielder Water, which is a large reservoir in the northeast of England. And at the moment, that is supplying water to the towns and cities of the northeast, such as Newcastle. But as this map shows, there's proposed plans to actually transport water all the way from Kielder Reservoir right down to London, where it would be able to meet the demand of the population there. Now obviously there's some benefits of water transfer schemes and using reservoirs like this. Kielder Water has created water wildlife habitats. It's a very popular area for tourists to visit this area. The transfer scheme will actually prevent overpopulated areas such as London from suffering from that water deficit, and as a result of that it will allow those economic centres to continue to thrive and grow and not put any limiting factors on that further economic growth. Disadvantages though, the aqueducts and pipelines needed to transport the water are going to be very costly to build and to maintain. The repair costs will be very high. But also to create reservoirs like Kielder Water, we have to flood lots of land, and that's farmland, it's natural habitat, and even houses are lost in order to create these reservoirs in some areas. Or they certainly have been in the past. So obviously water transfer schemes are a great help in moving water to where it's needed. Another solution is to try and reduce demand for water, particularly in those areas at risk of deficit, and that can be done by conserving water, preserving water. And we can do that in a few ways. First of all, ensuring that any pipes are fixed rapidly and any leaks are stopped to stop water loss there. Collect rainwater in gardens. Many of you may have got water butts like this in your gardens. By collecting that rainwater and using that for your gardens instead of using a hose pipe in the main supply, you can save water there. Taking shorter showers, perhaps if needed, using a shower timer to monitor that time you're spending in the shower. Very heavy usage of water in the showers. Tap aerators can be used. This is a device on the bottom of many taps now, which actually reduce the amount of water flowing out, but give it a higher pressure, so you're using less water from your tap. And also the legendary dual flush on now many toilets, where you've got an option for a smaller and larger flush to reduce the amount of water used most of the time. Of course, only using the larger flush when that's required. We don't need to explain when that is. And then finally, just to touch upon water quality in the UK. As well as ensuring that we've got a sustainable water supply, the Environment Agency helps to monitor the quality of our water to ensure it is kept to high standards. So some of the problems with our water is direct pollution to our reservoirs. That could be through littering, a lot of people visit reservoirs, but also through people using boats on these water bodies. Well, we need to limit the recreational use of those drinking water sources, particularly restricting use of motorboats on those water sources. A lot of industries, mainly historically in this country, releasing chemical waste into rivers. Well, we can put strict regulations in force about discarding chemical waste and using heavy fines to try and stop industries from doing so. And also our farms. Farmland is often sprayed with chemical fertilisers, pesticides, but also animal waste. That can run off and enters our rivers and lakes, causing pollution there. So a solution to that is making sure the water is obviously filtered, purifying it with using chlorine, but also, like I mentioned in the last video, trying to move towards organic farming where less chemicals input is required. And finally, we'll just look at an example of an exam question from this topic, and it interestingly does actually mention Kielder Water in this one. So it's a 6-marker. It says study figure 10, a map showing proposed water transfer schemes in England and Wales and some information about population change. So we've got a map of England and Wales. It's the key here is showing these water transfer routes from reservoirs that are marked out to areas that are going to need the water, and it picks out London as an area where, and I'll just quote the top part here, it says London's population is growing at double the rate of the UK average, and also picks out Oxfordshire as well, which is set to have a population explosion, expecting large increases in the population of these areas. And then the question says, using figure 10 in your own understanding, suggest how the proposed water transfer schemes will help meet the change in demand for water in the UK. So, we need our own knowledge, of course. We must also make sure we make clear use of figure 10 if we're going to access those top marks, the 5 and 6 marks. So what do we need? Well, we need to have obviously a detailed understanding of issues around water supply and demand in the UK. That's not shown in the figure. We know that from this video, that we know where we've got areas of surplus and deficit, but it doesn't talk about that in this figure. So you're showing your knowledge of where we have surplus and why in the UK, and where we've got deficit and why in the UK is going to get you good marks there. Of course, we need clear use of the figure so we can make links between population and demand, and we can talk specifically about the areas it picks out. We may want to quote some of the figures used in the text here to support that. And then a clear explanation of how water transfer can help, so making that link between surplus and deficit and the use of water transfer schemes as a solution. You could have also got marks for referencing the need to use water conservation in these high consumption areas, but you could access the marks without referencing that. So that clear understanding of surplus and deficit, use of the figure, and how water transfer schemes can help to get those 6 marks. Okay, that's it for this video. Next time we'll be looking at energy resources in the UK.